Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we are going to preview the 66 kilogram women's GP for Polaris, and also talk about Chris Weidman versus Owen Lively super fight that is on that card. We are also going to recap Toro Cup, Gabriel Sousa versus Gianni Grippo, headlining Toro Cup for the title there, and the IBJJF men's and women's GP, and some of the super fights that took place on that. As always on the show, I'm your host, Maine, and the co-host,
Miranda.
How you doing, Miranda?
I'm a little stuffy.
Yeah, I was sick last week. You're sick this week. It's again another remote show. So if the audio takes a little bit of a hit and it's out of sync like it was last week on the YouTube, again, apologies for that. Hopefully, as soon as we're in person again, that will get fixed. Just the remote recordings, it's always really hard to do that. But in effort to not get sick, we're doing another remote show. Some fun matches this week, some also not so fun matches this week. But before we get into that, not to cut you off, Miranda, but before we get into that, do we have any news?
Um,
I think there's a couple things. It's a bunch of fun MMA fights this weekend, and they did feature a lot of grappling. We usually don't cover MMA on the show, but let's talk about it for the next minute or so. Jon Jones comes back to heavyweight. Proves that he's still probably kind of the GOAT, and that jiu-jitsu is real.
Did you hear the whole thing where he said he was severely injured before the match and he only sparred 3 times?
I didn't hear that. I don't follow MMA as much as I should. Yeah. Especially for now, how much I'm betting on it.
I saw something today, and it said that he was injured prior to the match. I didn't see it where it said what the injury was, but that he only actually sparred 3 times in camp. Because I actually saw it because it said that Chael Sonnen must have watched the I can't think what it's called, the thing that they shoot before Embedded. The event, showing them getting ready. Yeah, Embedded. I guess Chael had watched that and said that he was injured because he was in the pool all the time and he was doing a lot of water therapy. And so Chael called him out for being injured, and he actually was injured, which is hilarious because that's the second time.
Chael says a lot of shit, but
no one listens.
But because he says too much stuff. But honestly, he has some great insight occasionally where he's oh, you nailed that. There's also a video going around of Henry Cejudo back in January, I think, training with Jon Jones and showing the exact sequence to Jon Jones, and coaching him versus that he finishes Sirogane with. It's wild. Yeah. It's and somebody overlays, or not overlays, they do picture in picture for the finishing sequence while Henry is teaching Jon Jones, and Jon Jones is nodding, going, yeah, okay, and taking Henry Cejudo's advice and information, and it's the exact same sequence, and it's pretty wild. There is also a video. So Jon Jones finishes a guillotine in 2.5 minutes. Everyone.
And it's a guillotine up against the cage.
Yeah, everyone who thinks it's not a good guillotine has never been put in that guillotine by a heavyweight, or Jon Jones with his lanky arms. You can take someone's head and neck off from the C-spine up with that choke in that position. Should Cyril maybe have defended it a little better? Possibly, but you have heavyweight Jon Jones on your neck. Go back and watch the Lyoto Machida finish if you don't think Jon Jones has a crazy, crazy guillotine. You have any other thoughts on the fight?
No, it was pretty short.
Alexa Grasso almost chokes out Valentina Shevchenko in a big upset.
It looked like she was just... I bet you she was just practicing that spinning back kick.
There is a video that shows Grasso intercepting that spinning back kick in training, specifically looking for the back and specifically drilling that technique against Shevchenko, because Shevchenko has a tendency to throw that spinning kick at too close of a range. And there's also basically there's a Reddit thread, basically those 2 videos back to back of here's Grasso working on that thing that she finishes the fight with. Here's Cejudo teaching Jon Jones that thing that he finishes the fight with. So that was, again, it's cool. It's cool to have another, new female champion taking out a big upset, another female champion. So that's neat. Really, really tight rear naked choke. There's an image of Shevchenko's face, and it's all red, and you can see where Grasso's arm was on her neck and face because it's all white because she's put all the blood out of it. Crazy squeeze there. Exciting fight as well. And then also on the card, Bo Nickal, UFC debut? Or his
want to
second
say
fight.
he
It was
was
a
the
Contender fight.
Yeah, he was on Contender. And then I think this is the fight after Contender.
He might have had one more, but I think that's correct. Maybe a knee to the dick. Maybe a knee to the thigh.
Yeah. He's either 2 or 3-0.
Something like that.
Anyway.
So, yeah, I've seen Bo Nickal grapple before. Miranda and I on the pre-show had some kind of questions about exactly why he decided to finish the arm triangle like he did. But again, he gets the finish, maybe after an illegal knee, maybe not after an illegal knee. Go back and watch it for yourself. It's interesting. Again, I've been watching Bo Nickal for a lot of years. The photo of him suplexing Gordon Ryan that's really famous, I took that photo at Third Coast Grappling. So I actually interviewed Gordon after that match, and I followed Bo Nickal since that moment. And so it's been cool to watch him kind of develop into an MMA fighter or leave jiu-jitsu, wrestling, going to MMA now in the UFC and getting submissions in the UFC. So neat weekend. Anything else on the UFC, Miranda?
No, I think that was most of the fun stuff that happened in that event.
If you happen to be other fun stuff, if you happen to be in Ohio this weekend, the Arnold Classic happened. As always, Grappling Industries has an event there. And if you happened to enter the heavyweight division, you could have got beaten up by Cyborg or Dante Leon.
Yep.
Which I always love. I always love that world-class people jump into the Grappling Industries at the Arnold. I think last year it was Gordon, or 2 years ago it was Gordon. Prior to that, Craig Jones has been there.
I think Fionn did a seminar, but yeah. I don't think she jumped in the actual brackets.
She don't know. Seminar there. But again, usually there's one big name there that you're like, that's unfair. But it is kind of cool because occasionally you get to play jiu-jitsu with LeBron. And you're like, yeah, that guy from our sport that wins world titles is going to come to a Grappling Industries that I can enter, and I can feel what that feels like to get beat up by a guy whose living and livelihood is based on this thing. So Cyborg has some funny highlights out of him just beating up people, possibly hobbyists.
We need to go to that sometime because I'm sure you could turn and watch Cyborg beat somebody up and then turn around and watch some guys in some kind of medieval metal.
Yeah. We've been talking about going for years, and I wanted to go for years. Simon and I were going to go this year, but life gets in the way with me getting a new job and all that good stuff. So next year, as we've said for the last probably 5 years, hoping to go out to that. But that was this weekend. That was the fun of this weekend. Any other news?
If you want to see the ups and downs of is it Manaus Boys? Manaus Boys. That starts on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's a new documentary series that Flo's doing. Following Fabricio Andre. Yep, keep going.
You don't need a subscription to Flo for it.
Oh, really?
Opening it up. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. It's Fabricio Andre, Baby Shark, and Diego and Micah Gavao. Basically, all three guys from the jungles of Manaus, and it kind of is a story following them. And those are three of the best people in the world. I'm really amped and excited to watch it because I know very little about that region in Brazil, and a lot of amazing grapplers come out of that region. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I keep cutting you off because of the delay on the mic, and I'm going to try not to do that. Do we have anything else?
Nah, that's it.
All right, let's move in. Where do you want to start? Let's start with Toro Cup or start with IBJJF GP? What do you want to do, Miranda?
Let's do Toro.
All right. Toro Cup headlined by Gabriel Sousa versus Gianni Grippo. Gabriel Sousa comes in. It's a 155-pound match, defending his title versus Gianni Grippo. I love that Toro Cup has him as an active champion. He's a North Carolina guy, and Toro Cup is out of North Carolina. And yeah, I've been loving. We've been covering Toro Cup, I think, since Toro Cup 6, and it's been awesome to see them kind of grow and have more and more folks. And have a defending champion, which a lot of organizations kind of struggled to do. So this match was ADCC rules, but instead of the overtime that ADCC uses, they used golden score. So the first person to score in overtime. It's not historically been my favorite way to do overtime scoring because sometimes it can get a little weird. But overall, again, this match works out fine. Again, Gabriel Sousa, I have been so impressed. I think you know more about his game than I do because you've watched a couple of instructionals. And did you do a seminar with him or no?
No, I've never. I've wanted to, but he hasn't. He's done a few down in North Carolina, but he hasn't come this direction. But I have his Jiu-Jitsu X instructional, and weirdly enough, it's changed. Like, he actually updated it, and I didn't have to pay more money for it, which is even the crazier part of it. So he updated it, and he added in how he passed Mikey Musumeci's guard, and how he subbed him.
Oh, that's cool.
He added that as like an additional one, and I think he cleared up some of his passing, which was great. Because I mean, I like his passing. He's a very like dynamic kind of back and forth style passing, which we saw some of, but we also saw him kind of get into Grippo's, was it a Z guard?
Yeah, kind of. It's like a mid-range Z guard that Grippo likes to play.
Yeah.
And it's where a lot of guys kind of get tripped up with Grippo, because Grippo's super, and you see, and again, we see it in this match, Grippo's super flexible and also has a really good, like a tight inversion game, kind of like most dudes do at 45, but Grippo particularly will like let you get way more of an angle on him before he is forced to invert. And I think a lot of guys that kind of aren't on a level that Sousa is on will get tripped up by that and think they're passing, and then Grippo will give like an extra 15% of like a 15% angle and then not force the inversion and then put you back in his guard, and you'll get caught in something.
Well, what I was going to say is he does a really good job of, as he inverts or as he then reestablishes his guard, he grabs something like in the transition. Yeah. Because like the one time he grabbed his leg in the transition, or actually grabbed his leg like once or twice during the transition. He tried to armbar him at one point during like an invert when he came back around.
There was a triangle attempt there as well from Grippo.
Yeah.
Every time I was super impressed with Sousa's defense though. Like the armbar, Sousa was out immediately. The triangle, Grippo never even got a chance to like lock over the shoulders because Sousa was already yanking out. Even on the leg lock attempt, Sousa did one of the highest high steps, but it was one of the highest high steps I have ever seen anyone do at that weight class. Like, he was just, Grippo grabbed and Sousa brought his knee to like above his head and just went nope and just walked away, or like stepped out of it completely and then came back and addressed the guard. Great defensive ability from Sousa here for the majority of the match, but still putting enough pressure into Grippo in the passing that he was forcing Grippo to play more of, for the majority of the match, a 20-minute match, a more defensive kind of guard, and didn't let Grippo kind of operate in the range of the Z shield that he wanted to, because Sousa was putting enough pressure into him to kind of force Grippo between the stage of like, I need to invert out of this, and I need to square up and just push against you so I'm not going to get slid off the mat. And so he kind of leads Grippo in kind of the same way we saw, not the same way, but tactically similar to what we saw Pedro Mourinho do versus Giancarlo Bodoni last week or 2 weeks ago, in that he plays the guard at a range where it's like it forces you to have to react a certain way. And Sousa has built his game in a way that once you are forced to react in the range of guard that he is forcing you to play, he can capitalize on that. And that's when we start to see the 2 or 3 times that he almost gets past the guard, and then he used a different pass to get past Grippo's guard. But when Grippo goes to like shift his hips, Sousa will tend to like shuck him really, really hard. But most people will get up off your Z shield when they do this. Sousa doesn't really do that. He does that from like a really, really close range that I am not super familiar with seeing a lot of guys do that from. It's kind of something that, while not being completely unique to Gabriel Sousa, he does it with a frequency that I am not used to seeing at guys at 45 and 55.
Yeah. No, and it's true. He does play within, because he plays in a different range. He plays in almost the, I wouldn't call it like, it's an active passing range, but it's not, I don't know how to explain it, because you're not stalling by where he stays at. Yeah. But it's like it's almost like a safety range.
You're so far into the person that they're gonna have to do 2 things to start to attack you.
Yeah, and you have enough room to get out, and you have enough time to get out from where you're at. But you're not fully committing yourself either.
So,
and he does certain things like something, and I don't remember who told me this a long time ago. He grabs like the inside hand and he does like the Statue of Liberty grip, which is like instead of grabbing like your normal grip, you grab the Statue of Liberty grip and hold their arm up.
Yeah.
So they can't. Yeah. I don't know how else to explain that.
Yeah,
It's
basically
like
take your hands. You know how you normally grab a coffee cup for the audio folks here? You have a coffee cup with your hand
Upside
outstretched. Basically, put your hand up like you're holding a goblet from the bottom, and it's a hand grip it's a grip like that. And so I've never heard that. I've never heard that term, the Statue of Liberty grip. But as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, I know immediately the orientation of the hand that you're describing. And then you lift their hand up from that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I was always explained. But
I use that grip on the foot.
That.
When I'm in Delihiva guard, in Delihiva and stuff like that, I'll reach underneath and use that grip on under your foot.
See, I see grip, but I don't do like the Statue of Liberty.
I'm just trying to think of where else I use that grip, and like that's one of the only places that I ever use that grip. But Sousa tends to use that grip a little more than most people.
Oh, you know what? At another gym I train at, they call it the Lego man grip. Because think of Lego.
I've heard it called the Lego man grip before.
Yeah, I've heard it called that too. But anyway,
so this is a fun match. About 9 minutes in, Sousa hits a really, really impressive, like, not like a runaround pass, but he just sort of outside Toriando's Grippo from a weird range on a reset and just gets past him.
Yeah, it was almost like he went away. He, like, disengaged and then re-engaged. Yeah. But rather than, like, establishing his grips when he re-engaged, he just like knee sliced through him,
which is something we don't see most people are ever able to make work. It's one of the kind of frustrating things we see a lot is we will see someone try this pass, but they'll never, on the end of the pass, once they've gotten past the legs, they'll be too far away to get their body back over the person's chest to prevent the person from being able to re-guard on the pass. Sousa's able to do it here, and he's able to get by and stay past Grippo. And again, this is a pass that I'm always super frustrated to watch because it almost never works against high-level guys. The way that Sousa does it, his timing on this is the best I have ever seen for anyone doing this pass, and I was floored with just watching him get past and then settle on top of Grippo after he had got his body past the legs. It is not something we see very often, and Sousa did it in a way kind of unlike I've ever seen anyone else be able to actually hit this pass, because he uses like the speed to hit the pass, not as much like where he does it like everyone else at the same range, but then he uses his speed to kind of yank back into Grippo to get back on his hips and on his chest. Just super impressive and uncommon. That was a minute before the points happened. The rest of the match is non-scoring for points, which is what it is. You're going to have a lot of that in IBJJF GP coming up here. And then it goes to golden score. Do you have anything else kind of later stages of the match you want to talk about, Miranda?
No, but when it went to golden score, did you notice the whole the pool situation where Sousa actually looks at Bagels and is like, gives him the look like, dude, he just pulled. That's a penalty.
This is ADCC rules. He can't pull like that. Yeah. And Bagels was like, I let him ride, dog. We're on Toro Cup, dog.
He gave him a look. He gave him a look, and it was like, oh yeah, because it was like. Basically, Gianni did the like half-assed pull, and Sousa did I call it the IBJJF like low double, where they like rush a double into somebody who's pulling guards so that they can get the two. He does that, right? But then Gianni doesn't sit completely. He like chills for a second, and then he just kind of sits. And it's like you can look at Sousa's face, and Sousa's like looking at him like, dude, those points are mine. Or like, I don't know if he thought he got the two from the takedown because Gianni then sat.
Look,
or if he thought
nothing
there was a penalty situation.
You lose nothing by staring angrily at your ref. I always encourage, I hate that I coach like this now, but I always encourage people I coach to like, if you have the opportunity to sell points that you think you got, especially at a local level for local referees, and again, not Bagels, the referee for this match, but at a local level, if you think you got points, you can stare at your ref and look, and that ref may reconsider and may give you points that you may or may not have earned. It's just a way to game and play the system. You see Gabriel Sousa doing it here, where he's like, man, I got those points. Like, you lose nothing by as long as you're still focused enough on the match. You lose nothing by trying for it, and you gotta respect it. You were talking about earlier in the pre-show when we were kind of talking about this match that we were wondering if Sousa might have been able to pass again during the point section of this match and not go to golden score. Eventually, Sousa passes again. He uses kind of a variation of what he had used earlier in golden score. Grippo does a great job of getting his foot in front this time, but Sousa just pushes so heavy in that Grippo tries to push him off with his foot, and the foot goes over Sousa's head and he can pass.
Is that what he does? Because it seemed like he just went like heavy into his hips and just was like, okay, we're going to see how far your leg will go forward.
Yeah.
He just kept on kind of pushing his leg forward.
He did that, and Grippo tries to counter and try to like knock him over with the leg, but Sousa is able to kind of like get over it and like have it, instead of pushing him away, just like move past him, and then he's just in Grippo's side control, and that's the match. Again, I was impressed with it. I would have loved to see a little more activity from both guys, like as far as like positional changes. I understand why. I'm not going to fault any guy for how they play and how they win. I think this would have been there are places where both guys could have maybe opened up a little bit. I completely understand why they didn't. But overall, it was like, one pass in golden score wins the match. Still super excited. Still super impressed with Gianni's guard.
Didn't Sousa win over
Corbray?
Was it Corbray?
Yeah.
By like jumping his back.
I think he beat both brothers actually.
Yeah, he did.
Gavin and DeAndre.
I think he beat both brothers, but the one, and I think it was DeAndre, he beat in sudden death. Yeah. And it was like a back take. But it was like this crazy like jumping.
I don't remember if that was Gavin or if that was DeAndre Corbray. He fought them kind of back to back, and I always forget which one it was.
It was DeAndre because DeAndre's bigger. And okay. I see DeAndre standing. Well, maybe not. I don't know.
I remember both those matches were a lot of fun, but it is cool. Yeah. Again, you have a long-standing champion now in Toro Cup. Toro's been bringing in great guys to face him. I'm curious who will be brought in next time to face Sousa, because I love watching him compete. So,
yeah, it's fun.
Any kind of closing thoughts on Toro? Support Toro Cup. Go watch it. It supports a great cause locally in North Carolina. I don't remember exactly who they are supporting this time, but been around for a long time and do great stuff in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Flow now.
Flow. You can watch it.
Commentary is fun. Commentary is knowledgeable. So, any other kind of closing thoughts on Toro?
Nope. I think that's it.
All right, let's move into the IBJJF GP. I feel like I was being punished watching this. It was 4 hours and 15 minutes and 11 matches with one sub.
Craig Jones put a post up about how this event is like the beginning of the end of GI or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think that's correct, but I can see it from here.
I don't know, man. These events don't make GI any more fun to watch.
They tried to, so I will be upfront here and I'm not trying to make a curmudgeon. We try to talk about the stuff we watch positively. Was not my favorite event to watch. It was long. It was very slow at many times. And they even tried to change the rules to try to help some of the issues that we have had historically with the IBJJF GP, and it didn't really help. It didn't really help also that we had a 30-minute gi match at the end of the card that was pretty one-sided and went to points at the end. Overall, I think I don't know how to fix these. The IBJJF rule set is the least viewer-friendly rule set that we cover on the show. It's very slow. It's very grindy. And overall, unless you have mismatches, a lot of times you get a glacial pace out of the athletes because strategically that's what you need to do to win. So with all that being said, some great athletes on the card, Miranda, where do you want to start? I don't think we're going to run through all of these matches. I have results. I have some notes for them, and I can kind of stop off where you want to stop off. But what matches do you want to cover through on the show?
Let's do the GP.
Okay.
Let's do. Do you want to do leading up to the finals? Or
I'll run through the matches. Do you want to do men's or women's first?
Women's.
Women's first. Let's start with women. They're on my bottom of my notes. Women's heavyweight tournament. Yeah. First round we had. Yep, you go.
It was a $10,000 purse to win the tournament,
which is awesome. Again, I love to see the IBJJF paying the athletes and having more paid events. Even all that shit I talked a minute ago, I do love the athletes. It's a big purse. Like $10,000 is a lot of money for the athletes, and that goes back into the jiu-jitsu community, and I appreciate that. Just man, some of the tactics needed to win in IBJJF are not my favorite as a viewer. Natalia DeJesus defeats Injustice Sintra via points. That was 6-4 on points. Ana Carolina Vieira defeats Melissa Couto via 2 advantages. Third place match, Melissa Couto defeats Injustice Sintra via ref's decision. This was kind of a fun, not fun match. It was a fun match. I like when you get a mirror match like this where Couto hits a really interesting scissor sweep from Sintra squatting, and then later in the match, Sintra hits her own sweep from kind of from Couto squatting, and and Sintra's sweep was more like an X guard kind of variation sweep, but it was still a very, very similar range sweep, and it was like a mirror match, and it went to decision 2-2 with 1 ad for each. But those matches always kind of make me laugh, where it's like, yep, those, especially in certain weight classes. In certain dynamics and matches, you'll see it comes down to the same technique back and forth, and then it goes to decision. I think Couto wins, and I think that's a very kind of a reasonable decision for the third place. In the finals match, we had Natalia DeJesus defeating Ana Vieira via 1 advantage. Very, very close match. The first, what do you think, Miranda? 7 minutes of the match?
Yeah.
Or so, a 10-minute match for IBJJF here.
Yeah, it was about 6 or 7 minutes was Nicelli just with a deep lasso and a Delahiva, kind of going back and forth.
And Ana Carolina was kind of stuck with her hand. I couldn't tell if she was stuck or she was looking to pass off of this, but her hand was just down in the center of the pants for a huge portion of this, and I was I was kind of waiting for, is she going to initiate a pass? Is she kind of going to try to get Natalia to overcommit? Is DeJesus going to try to bring her in to get her over? It was at this mid-range for 7 minutes.
So Nicelli allegedly has a deep lasso, shin. I don't know, call it a shin hook, shin on one side and deep lasso on the other side to sweep, kind of like somebody else does that too, and I can't, my brain's completely falling.
I'm blanking on the person.
But Nicelli has really long legs, so she can do that. And from what I understood, it was Ana Carolina trying to punch one of the legs down so that she couldn't have both of her kind of arms or upper torso, would probably be a better way to explain, available for the sweep. So that one hand was kind of punching that leg down. Because if you watched, she always had one of the legs punched down.
Yeah.
Because Nicelli would switch for the lasso on the left side to the lasso on the right side, which I thought was crazy because she started going from lasso and DLR on one side to the other side. And I don't even think I can do Delahiva with my right. I can't do it on one side.
Yeah.
I can do it on one side. And my other side, you're not getting that out of it.
And that's why we're not world champions. Because I've got a good side and I've got a shitty side for stuff. But the switch was cool. It was just the first 7 minutes of the match. I think eventually the ref goes, all right, y'all got to go a little bit, gives a penalty, and then they restart. And then this is where the points are scored. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, well, at one point, Nicelli stands up. And when Nicelli stands up, they stand. And then there's the whole stalling. The whole stalling situation happened while they were standing. And then Ana Carolina pulls guard. And then it's that whole situation from there.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the points are scored. It's kind of like it's a shallow guard. It's not a great guard pull. It's kind of a shallow guard pull, and Nathalie immediately tries to like kind of crush her down and take either pass or get the back. Anna Karenina does a great job of getting to turtle, but if you are in the guard and you go to turtle and then there's no score that happens, an advantage is awarded, that's where Nathalie gets the score. Then she's in the top of Anna Karenina's guard with 2-ish minutes left. In IBJJF, you can just kind of sit in the guard and be active enough, and that's what she does, and she wins on an advantage. Wins 10 grand, and again, you win within the rule set that you are competing in. Does a great job. I just wish we would have seen more from either woman's game, because they are so very good, and it's just kind of frustrating that the rule set facilitates this sort of match sometimes.
I think also Nicelli, that was her first real tournament in 2 years since she went against Gabby Garcia. It's the first time since she had the baby.
We've seen her in superfights,
but not in the last 2 years because she had a baby. She just had a baby. The baby was on top of the husband's leg.
I saw the baby that Hibamar had the baby. I was like, look at that.
They said the last time she competed was 2 years ago, and 2 years ago was Gabby Garcia.
Oh, no shit.
When she won against Gabby.
That's crazy.
So I mean, not saying that makes her, not as active, but
I mean, you having a baby, that kind of tends to take a little bit of time to get back into competition shape. But yeah, congrats to her. Great finals match, great to the tournament. Again, I cannot speak enough that I love that the IBJJF is finally putting women on the stage for the IBJJF GPs and getting them paid, because that was one of the complaints we had for a long time, was that like they were extremely underrepresented in the IBJJF. So it's cool that they have made that change. Let's move on to talking about the men's GP, if I can find my notes for that. First round
this is gonna be fun.
I'm gonna keep it together. I've given my choice words on some of the action I thought on the pre-show. DM me if you wanna know what I think. First round, we had Jonta Alves defeating Elijah Dorsey on points. I couldn't exactly. There were some issues with the scoreboard here. I have a couple of different points that were scored there.
It was 15-0.
That's what it said,
right?
And then on the score, in the results I have, but in the scoreboard, it was like all wonky and different.
Oh, okay.
Jonta Alves took a very clean victory over Elijah Dorsey. Next one, we had the only submission of the event. Andy Murasaki defeated Carlos Henrique by submission, a bow and arrow choke. It was really just Murasaki kind of hunting the back for a while off of not really like a dogfight, but you could sort of tell that Murasaki was like a step ahead. He kept kind of forcing Carlos Henrique back to his knees, and you could tell Murasaki was like kind of gaining more and more ground as they kind of fought in this middle range dogfight kind of come up position. Eventually Murasaki gets the back, gets the body triangle, goes really high up later for a modified bow and arrow choke like off the top when you have that top leg swung over. Murasaki is so good on the back, and his like ability to slide up without losing control is really crazy. And again, this match and this finish really showcases that off. Third place match, we had Elijah Dorsey defeating Carlos Henrique via decision, 5-2, or it's not decision, via points. Jitsmag always loves to put points in decision, and I love their results formatting, so I tend to pull from that. This was a points one, and then the finals match for the GP for the men, we had Jonta Alves defeating Andy Murasaki via I Hate My Life 50-50. 2-2 on ads. He wins a decision. When it's a close match like this, I don't necessarily disagree with the decision. I think Alves did, and again, Alves did what he needed to win here, even with the IBJJF implementing additional rules for how you could play 50-50 with lapels. Doesn't really stop Jonta Alves from doing that here. The first 4 minutes were some nice kind of complex open guard work where he really wrapped up Murasaki and prevented him from being able to make space to do all the outside passing that we know Murasaki to do so well. And then as soon as Murasaki sort of starts to get moving a little bit, Alves immediately shucks for like a low knee bar that he then yanks into 50-50. and then takes the dominant grip in 50-50 with the underhook of the leg, and then that is the match. They teeter sweep back and forth, and Alves has the better hand positioning because he's put himself in the position to have the better hand positioning, and that is the entire match. I wish it's a Jonathan Alves puts you in 50-50 match, and it is my least favorite match to watch that we cover. We've seen it again. They tried to change the rules so that he couldn't have a finals match like this. He was able to do it anyway. I just wish that we would see more from Jonathan Alves and his game, because he keeps doing this.
But tactically, he won.
He won. I get that.
That's what he needs to
and that's
do.
what he needs to do.
I mean,
he continues to win. He has such a great game. We've seen him in moments like show it off, but there are also so many moments like this where he does the littlest he can do to win by the margin that he can win. And we've just seen him do this for so long. For me as a viewer, it sometimes gets frustrating because it's amazing that he can shut a guy like Andy Murasaki down. Like, that in itself technically is amazing, and I can appreciate the depth of skill that Jonathan Alves and his ability to do that. But at a certain point, I don't really want to see you shut a guy down anymore. Like, I want to see you do the offense and, like, put him in a bad spot, put him in a bad position, like, pass his guard, get him down. Like, I want to see the other avenues and aspects of your game other than your ability to just kind of grind and control a guy to a 2-point win or like a couple of point win or an advantage win or a decision win here. It has just been frustrating me longer and longer because we've seen him have great performances. We've seen him have so many performances like this, won by the smallest margin available. So that's been my frustration. Miranda, do you have any other thoughts about the match and about the tactics or techniques that we saw?
No, I watched it, and you could tell that Jonathan had either Jonathan or his coaching, because his coaching's AOJ, so it's the Mendes brothers. So they're the ones that are really, the brains behind everything. They're tactically, he did it perfectly. He did it into a position where he got his points for the sweep. Murasaki swept him back, and then he had the dominant grips. He had the dominant position. He wasn't really worried about catching penalties because he wasn't going to catch enough penalties to get DQ'd. So he just had to do enough action, which in the last 30 seconds, in that whole match, the last 30 seconds of Jonathan trying to sweep Murasaki and him standing there was probably the most action we saw from Alves.
And that's usually how the matches go. About a minute and 20 seconds left in the match is usually when Alves will really get aggressive on something.
And tactically, if you think about it, that's what most judges are paying attention to, the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I understand it. And it's, again, Jonathan Alves wins big events with that strategy, and I can't really fault him. Yeah, I just see it as a tactical win as opposed to a exciting win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't, again, on my earlier piece, I don't want to fault him for it. It does just frustrate me because I want to see more from him, and this is a tactic that I'm not, as a viewer, super interested in continuing to see. And even, the IBJJF never makes changes to their rules for athletes like this. They made a change in their event specifically to stop this, and he did it anyway. And it's at that point, guys.
The other thing is sometimes, I'm not saying this is this situation because I have no idea, but sometimes when you're going against someone who is better than you, you have to tactically beat them because you can't beat them otherwise.
Yeah, and we've seen that implemented for years and years for various matchups. That guy should blow him out of the water. And then you see a guy that, I'm not saying that Murasaki or Alves is better than the other. This is just a generalization for why you get weird tactical matchups sometimes. It's I can't beat you in the athletic area, so I'm just going to tie you up. I'm just going to rope you into this game and keep you in my A game and never let you get to your B game because we are just so rooted in my A game. And that's a lot of what the best guys in the world do. It's Jonathan Alves, I get to my guard first, I get to my grips first, I tie you up first, and then you're playing out of the thing that I am the best in the world at. and you're unable to make any ground up in the time that we have because I know how to tie us up here for 12 minutes of a 10-minute match, and that is all I need to do. And it's brilliant tactics. I just want to see more. I just want to see more of his game. So, anything else on the finals match?
Nope.
Moving on, let's talk about the main event. Tainan Dalpra defeats Isaque Bahiense via decision, 19-2 on points for Tainan. The only
14 advantages.
14 advantage. I forgot about that. 14 advantages. The only reason that Bahiense gets 2 points is because Tainan gets 3 penalties, which then at the third penalty gives 2 points to your opponent. So this was functionally 17-0 Tainan. And then Tainan gets on the mic and basically says that he wanted to get the submission. And I got very frustrated with that, given that you were up 17 points in a 30-minute match and didn't make big effort to ever get out of a bad spot to try to make a good spot to make a submission happen. So
yeah, he played a very good controlling game. You know, he showed what we know of Tainan Dalpra, which is he can pass.
Yeah,
and he passed,
and he passed,
and then
and he passed, and he passed.
Yeah, and he controlled, and I mean, I like his passing, and I like his methods. Like I like how he the shin pin he uses.
He's probably my favorite passer to watch. I think right now, like hands down, if it's a Dalpra match, like I'm watching him for his passing. Yeah,
he's a very amazing passer. But his shin pin I love because that's what I do. And it really does control people really well. But yeah, from that position, he didn't really open up. He didn't really he kept on almost doing a knee on belly, but not really.
He was really worried that Bahiense was going to get back up, is what it seemed like. And because it was a 30-minute match, and 25 of it?
25 minutes.
Are him on top in either side control or half guard.
Yeah.
And he would be in half guard for a minute or two, and then he'd pass, and he'd be in side control for a minute or two, and then he'd get back into half guard.
And he did a really good job also using Bahiense's explosive hip bumps, because he would try to explode out or explode up, and Tainan would just pass off of it. And I thought that the timing of that was freaking perfect.
Yeah, Tainan's timing is amazing. That was the cool thing that I liked in this match, was that you saw that every time Isaque would kind of open his legs to be able to do the bridge, Tainan would time it perfectly, ride the bump up over, and just end up past. And he did it at least 3 separate times.
Do you know what he also did? You know we were talking on the pre-show about the knee bar, the really not so amazing knee bar that he tried.
Yeah, the one that Bernardo Faria does. That you called it the Bernardo Faria knee bar in the pre-show.
Yeah. Well, because I know it as I have a friend at another gym that calls it something horrible.
A dog bar?
No, they call it something horrible because of think about the part of your body that hits it to be able to do the knee bar.
Okay.
And that's all that you need to know. Anyway, so what he was actually doing with that, because and I thought about that, as we're talking, I just thought about this. He also tried that knee bar because he kept on putting himself back in Bahiense's half guard, and Bahiense didn't want to grab the half guard because he knew more points would go against him. So he would just let him put his leg between, his legs. But by attempting the knee bar, he made him pull a guard again.
Yeah.
Because he had to pull his leg back. So then Tainan could pass again and get more points for the pass.
I had no problem with the match. I had no problem with it until the post-fight, until the interview. It was I wanted to sub. You're no, you didn't, man. You were up a shitload of points. If you wanted it, you could have taken more risks there. And again, I'm not going to fault him for winning and winning dominantly in points. You had 30 minutes. You were up huge amounts of points in that match. If you wanted to take a risk and look for the sub, being up that many points, you could have absolutely tactically made that choice, but you decided to not. So in the post-fight, don't tell me that you wanted the sub. If it was going to be given to you and Bahiense was going to make a big mistake and give you a sub, great, then you'll take it. But that that for me was not you wanting the sub. That was you being willing to take the sub if presented to you. You're up 17 points in a 30-minute match. Fine way to win, but didn't really look like in this match that he was a guy hunting actively for the sub. He was happy to play a controlling positional game, beautifully timed. And again, I think for me at least, he is my favorite person in the sport to watch pass. I'm not going to not watch him play. I think I would love to see a match with him and JT Torres. I think that would be a phenomenal, like, passer's delight. But it was just very, very controlling, and it was pretty clear about, 10 minutes in, that this is how the match was going to go.
Didn't Tainan said recently that he wanted to start doing no-gi matches, right?
I'd love to see it. I don't remember. Mostly gi. Yeah. He's mostly gi.
Because he's AOJ, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do no-gi. I mean, he's done no-gi before. He has good. I forget. I know he has had very good no-gi performances, but primarily we see him nowadays in the gi.
Well, yeah. He's also undefeated as a black belt, 55-0 in IBJJF.
I'm not surprised at all. He is again one of the best dudes of the sport. Phenomenal game, but just again,
and then
would love to see him take some risks here.
Random other thing is when they introduced Bahiense. Do you know he's out of the Houston Dream Arts now? Because they just built a brand new Dream Arts in Houston.
I think I knew
they
that.
They said he was out of the Houston Dream Arts because I guess the Meow is in the one in Brazil, but that still confuses me because now the Meows are starting a gym
in New Jersey.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Maybe Dream Art Jersey, Dream Art's expanding, and again, I love that team puts out phenomenal athletes. So I'm down for it. But no, I didn't know he'd moved to Houston.
Yeah, they said that he was fighting out of Houston, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense then.
Sweet. So there are a couple of the matches on the card. We'll run through them quick before we get to the preview that I'm super excited for. Rolando Jr. defeats Francisco Lowe on advantages, 5-2. A 10-minute match with no points. There was one moment towards the end of the match that I thought was really cool tactically and technically. Rolando was doing really, really big outside passing of like a Toreando. And Francisco does something I've really not seen. I can't place something when I've seen it at a high-level match. He tries to arm drag from this range with Rolando trying to, Toreando. And he almost gets it, and it really, stops a lot of forward pressure that Rolando's putting in. It was just a really interesting move that I haven't seen done from that position in the gi like that before, and that was neat. It's towards the end of the match if you want to see it. I think it's in the last, minute or two.
I want to say that's a drill that they do at Marcelo's.
Yeah, it's a drill I've seen before.
But I've never actually seen anybody do it live.
And I've seen it in lower level matches, but in a high level match, I can't remember the last time I've seen it. So it was cool to see oh yeah, I've done that drill. I probably haven't done that drill in close to 8 years, but it's still a cool oh, I haven't seen that in forever. That's cool that occasionally things like that crop back up, and I thought it was interesting. Rolando takes that match on advantages. Gianni Libre defeats Nathalie Ribeiro on points, 3-2. Really heavy pressure, really nice heavy pressure pass at the beginning. Ribeiro gets out of an armbar attempt that Libre hit, and then almost takes Libre's back, and then they're standing, and Libre jumps guard and gets taken down for 2 points. Tactically, great decision to make. That's the entire match. Libre takes it on that initial pass, 3-2. That's the IBJJF GP. The whole thing's up on Flow. Definitely some interesting moments to watch. I just would love to see it run more quickly, and I would love to see no ads for Dodge Ram in the middle of the matches, and I would also love to see the rules be a little. I would love to see way more aggressiveness with the penalties. I would love to see the pacing increase.
They could do their advertisements the way Toro did. Toro did all their advertisements at the bottom of the screen where there was nothing. And then the matches were in the middle to the top of the screen.
I would love to see no ads on a premium broadcast that I'm paying money for a streaming service for a niche sport. Personally. But or don't do it. Don't pause the match and run it. It is so disrespectful as a viewer. I am flabbergasted that that they do that to the viewership. It's just like, it is so disrespectful. And they have these blocks of time when I'm just looking at I'm looking at a skyline for a minute or two, waiting for the next piece of the broadcast to come on. Put your ads there. Like, you have a commercial break slot for them. Don't put them in the middle of the match. It's like literally 5 minutes into a match. Don't put it in the middle of a match. I feel so disrespected as a viewer every time. I have no idea why Flo thinks that is acceptable to do to the community. But there's my weekly Flo rant at this point. Let's move on to the previews, unless you got anything else on those two events, Miranda.
Not at all.
All right, I am amped. Let's talk about Polaris. It's going to be wild. This is probably one of the best female brackets we have seen. Definitely one of the best ones that Polaris has ever put on. It's crazy. I have the wrong screen up now. Damn it.
Do you want me to start going on?
Why don't you start while I pull back up Polaris? Because I have the old picture that doesn't have Maggie Grandati in it, and so I'm looking for the new one while I stall for time. Miranda.
Okay. So it's the women's 66 kilogram GP. That is 145 pounds. It's Americans. And it is a little bit of everybody. It is Fionn Davies. It is Brianna St. Marie. It is Elizabeth Clay. It is Giovanna Jara. It is Maggie Grandati. It is Amy Campo, Julia Maley, and Joanna Danira.
And Giovanni Jara as well.
I said that.
Oh, you did? I got excited.
Yeah.
So we had some great time on the pre-show. This is a phenomenal lineup. We have some history with women before. They fought each other. They went against each other. This should be. I am super excited for this. So, some information. We have.
Take your phone in front of the camera.
Yeah, well, the camera. I'm using this camera.
I know.
Good point, though. Well. Julia May has went against Fionn Davies before. We found a match in 2019. Fionn wins that by armbar. She then would go on to win the trials for the Euros, go on to ADCC. Had a rough match in her first round, but former trials winner or current trials winner for ADCC. You have Amy Campo in this division. World medalist, world gold medalist, and your current ADCC plus 60 kilogram female champion. Fionn Davies, your multiple-time world medalist, your ADCC current under 60 kilogram champion. You have Elizabeth Clay, who has a win over and has a loss to Amy Campo. Also a multiple-time trials winner for ADCC, the youngest female trials winner ever for ADCC, has one of the best inverted knee bars in the sport and the best one in the women's division. We have Maggie Grandati, we've kind of just got public information that she's been out of fight sports for about a year now, kind of going and training with the Rochas and different spots. She went down to train in Austin, Texas with Gordon and them, kind of reinventing her training and herself. This will be the first time we've seen her in a little bit on one of these pro events that we're covering. Blue belt world champion through brown belt world champion, had a little bit of a hiccup, in black belt, but maybe a new camp will kind of reinvigorate her. We also have someone that we haven't talked about a lot, but it's been kind of been on our radar, Giovanna Jara. You looked up a bunch of stuff, Miranda, before the show because we'd seen her before. We were kind of familiar with her. We've heard people talk about her a lot, but
she won trials.
Yeah, she won trials.
Brazilian. Yeah,
but she's also won blue belt juvenile worlds, blue belts, purple belt worlds, double gold, weight and absolute. Brown belt or blue through purple weight and absolute for worlds. Yeah. And then won everything so far at brown belt. Still currently a brown belt, but just killing everyone. And she's normally she normally is in a little bit of a bigger bracket or a bigger class. Weight bracket. Yeah. So weight class. So that's the only wonder I have about her. How much is the cut going to affect her?
Yeah, because she's normally at 79 kilograms and she's going down to 66. Which for women is
big ass cut. Oh, yeah, I thought she was at 73. I thought she was at 73 kilos, not 79.
I wrote down 79.
Okay,
so.
I thought we talked on the pre-show that 73 kilos. Because 79 to 66 is a fucking giant cut.
Yeah. I'll recheck it as you speak over me. Speak.
We also have stall for time. We also have I'm missing her name. Oh yeah, Joanna Denerva, who is the champion, who's like the qualifier winner for Polaris. Again, we've talked about it for years. I love seeing qualifier winners get onto these stages. That's how we first got introduced to Junior Ocasio. That's how we got introduced to Keith Krikorian. You win a qualifier and it puts you on this major stage. It gets you a chance to showcase your talents against literally the best women in the world. So I'm super excited to see what she does here. We also have Branstey Marie, U.S. Trials winner for ADCC, and also bronze medalist, silver medalist.
Bronze
medalist for ADCC, current for
because
women's under 60.
Didn't Fionn go against
one of the Bias?
One of the Bias, yeah.
One of the Bias.
So Giovanna Jara is normally at 69 kilograms or 174 pounds. And she's going from that to 145. That's 30 pounds.
Jesus.
I mean, it's possible.
It's possible. Yeah, I mean, and for this bracket, you want to do it.
She also played handball in the Scholastic circuit as a child.
Huh. So this is a crazy bracket. So for me, for my money, if I make a pick, and also Elizabeth, yeah. So this is one of the best female brackets we have ever seen. I'm so amped that Polaris is putting this on. For my money, I'm going Amy Campo. Until you give me a reason not to, I'm going to go with the ADCC champion at the bigger weight class. But I cannot wait for this.
I agree with Amy Campo. If Jara wasn't coming down that much in weight, I would be more.
Your dark horse pick would definitely be her.
Yeah, I would go for Jara, and I still might. In my brain, I still kind of want to go for Jara, but
you love dark horse picks. That's what your favorite pick to make is the dark horse pick.
I'm looking at it, and she's never competed. She's competed at 70 kilograms for the Grand Slam, but I don't see her going to 66. And I don't know what their weight, if they weigh in before or after. That's the only thing that bothers me. Only because she's going to have how many matches? 3 matches in? Probably.
Yeah, for an 8-woman GP.
Yeah.
You got your fourth round, your round of 4. You got your semis. You got your finals to get into 1.
So that would be the only thing I'd be concerned about.
Yeah.
Also, when you're used to being a little bit bigger, sometimes you don't realize that when you get small, you don't have some of the same abilities that you do when you're larger. So
I'm amped though, and again, it's definitely I'm excited to have a reason to now go back and watch some of her matches. I've seen some of her highlights, but I'm excited to go back and I gotta learn her game now. So that's an exciting. I'm excited that she's on this. This again, I am so amped for this. This is the most amped I've been for a GP in a while. This is literally you have the best women from all the weight classes together in one tournament. That's a really rare occasion. This is a pretty rare tournament. So, again, this is like the equivalent of having Gordon and Mikey in the same, or Gordon and I'm blank, like Gordon, Bodoni, and who's the 77 right now, champion at ADCC.
Dude, I don't know. You're talking to the person that's won cough medicine and not sleep well.
Pretend like it's JT in the same bracket, like that level. How the hell are we blanking on the 66 kilogram champion?
Is it Micah? No,
it's Cade.
It's
Cade. And Cade in the same bracket. Like that's the men's equivalent of how awesome this bracket is. So I'm amped for it. Super fight. We have Chris Weidman versus Owen Livesley. So this is a weird one because if you don't know, Chris Weidman is a damn good grappler.
He is. And if you want to go on Flow, you can go, and you probably can go on YouTube too when I think about it, and watch Chris Weidman, some of his trials, or they're not his trials matches, they're the ADCC matches.
Yeah, so Chris Weidman won U.S. trials for ADCC back in 2008. I think he won the 08 trials. Then
he won the 09 trials, 09 East Coast trials at 88.
I thought he won the 08 East Coast trials.
09.
Oh, they were 09. They were the same year as ADCC. Then he goes on to face Andre Galvao in the weight class.
Yeah.
Right? He looks good against Andre Galvao in 2009. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Chris Weidman, because Chris Weidman, when I got into MMA, like as an adult, finally, I kind of re-got into it as an adult, Anderson Silva was the king and the champion. And I was following Anderson's run, and I was like, man, he's unkillable champion. And then Chris Weidman, this guy that comes along and then beats Anderson Silva. And this was right around when I started training. It's always a soft spot to watch. Like, oh, he was the first guy when I got back into MMA that I watched kill a champion, like to kill a king and to become the new champion. And then I went through when I started training and like watched all his old school matches and like followed all of the champions at that point in time. And Chris Weidman going and exploring like his wrestling matches and his ADCC run has always given me a really big appreciation for how good his grappling is. He takes on Owen Lively, who is so Chris Weidman right now is, you looked it up, like 38?
38.
38.
He's 38.
Owen Lively is 31. So
he
Owen
is.
Lively.
We don't realize this fact.
Yeah. We always want to put him like way older, and then every time I'm like, I think he's like way younger than we think he is, and he is every time. Yeah. He won Commonwealth Gold in Judo in 2013, so 10 years ago. Yeah. So most of Weidman's grappling is 2009, 2007, and onward. Yeah. You know, and then he gets into the UFC, and then he goes on his UFC title run. He wins the middleweight championship, defends it, has it for, I think he's 4-time UFC middleweight champion. Around the same time, or 5 years later, Owen Lively is a 21-year-old winning the Commonwealth Games in Judo. Yeah. So there's a 7-year age gap here. There's a mileage, you know, both guys have a lot of mileage on them.
Chris Weidman is also like 6'2", and Owen has to be like 5'10" at the tallest.
You posted 2 pictures today, like one of you next to Chris Weidman, and then one next to Owen Lively, and it's a stark contrast.
There's a stark contrast, and I have not grown in size.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years, but I'm the same size as I've always been. So, yeah. Chris Weidman is a very large man.
Weidman was also training with Gordon recently.
Yeah.
And
the end of
2020,
the end of February.
Yeah, like a month ago or something like that. But Weidman is also getting off of severely breaking his leg versus Uriah Hall 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. And then
I think it was a little bit longer than that.
Well, then he re-injured it, and then he's been rehabbing it, but now he's back. I don't know where Chris Weidman is. I am most familiar with his grappling game from 15 years ago when he was a totally different dude, earlier in his career. I know Owen's game now. We know this is going to be Weidman being able to shoot, and Owen with an amazing no-gi judo game and a good Greco game and a crazy foot sweep.
Yeah.
And my question is, with Chris Weidman's taped up foot, because it looks like his foot's injured in some of the pictures we pulled, how does that play into Owen's game?
Yeah, it's the most recent, like, today. Yeah, it's from today. It's a Monster Energy post that he has. They look down at his foot, and his foot is all wrapped up, like, in a bunch of KT tape. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. Thanks for putting that on and tagging Polaris in your post where you show one of your legs all taped up. Yeah. It's a good idea.
I'm kind of curious how that's going to go. I think this could be... So there's 2 ways, and you kind of thought about the second way this match could go.
Yeah.
The first way this match could go is Weidman's, turned the corner and has gotten older, and Owen can kind of like do jiu-jitsu all over him and take him down. Yeah. I think that's probably not going to be the case. I think that Owen's best shot here is going to be for leg locks, and is going to be attacking and kind of like the modern leg. Like Owen just went to ADCC. The guy is well versed in the modern game. We've seen him have some great matches on Grapple Fest and on Polaris. Like, We know he has a breadth of talent in the modern game. I would think that he would go out and try to leg lock Chris Weidman, because obviously that's where he is going to have the greatest differential. But if Chris was just training with Gordon, maybe his foot's taped up, maybe he's been doing a lot of leg locks and he's pretty comfortable there now. But I just think that that's Owen's best strategy for victory. I don't think Owen's going to be able to get onto Chris Weidman's back or be able to easily take Chris Weidman down, given he is kind of the much smaller guy in Chris Weidman's frame.
My only thing is that Owen might be able to get under, because Owen's also, like, he's a little stocky kind of dude.
Yeah.
He could probably, like, I think if Chris Weidman is 6'2", that is a lot of a very tall man. So I think Owen might be able to get below him and under him, and in that event, it might work. But from what we've seen on him recently, most of the time we've seen him do a lot of foot sweeps. So he might just foot sweep Chris Weidman down, and then we can see how Chris Weidman does from his back, which I was the opposite. I knew Chris Weidman from the UFC. I didn't realize, like, I knew he had some sort of wrestling background. I didn't realize he had ever done trials. I went back and watched his trials matches, and in his trials matches, he was never put on his back. Yeah. So I have no idea what he does when he goes to his back.
I don't think guys can I just don't think that he's going to be a guy with all the wrestling experience and all the MMA experience that Owen's going to be able to keep him on his back. He may be able to put him there. I think Owen will be, when he gets up, may be able to take his back. But again, with the MMA that Weidman has and the MMA, with all the MMA grappling experience that he has, I just think that, like, those are the two things that you train to avoid the most are someone on top of you in either side control or half guard, and then in those transitions, not getting your back taken. And I think that's what he's been training.
But I do have to say also, when I switched over and did a lot more wrestling rather than jiu-jitsu in a game, I started getting, and a thing that happened to me a lot, and a thing that I realize now that I'm with a different group of people grappling regularly than I get my back taken a lot more than I used to, because I turtle more. Because in wrestling, you're taught to never go to your back. So you constantly have this idea that you need to turtle. And if he has that kind of if he has that kind of thought process in his mind, now he was an All-American, but that was probably prior to 2009. So that was quite a while ago.
Yeah, I think that was 05
but if he still has,
or 07?
Yeah, so I don't know. So if he still has the instincts to turtle and to stay in that kind of, rather than go to his back, and he goes and turtles, I think Owen just grabs his back. I mean,
yeah, possible. So do we want to make a pick here? Because I've kind of gone back and forth through the show. I've been thinking about this, the women's bracket, and this. Who do you going to go for here? What do you think? I
mean, my heart goes for Owen Livesey.
I kind of think that might be,
and I kind of have to go for him. I think he's
just more familiar with a modern grappling rule set, and I think
he's been in it. He's been in it. Chris hasn't been in it for a while.
Yeah, I think that that's the key here, and I think that Owen will go to the legs with Chris and finish a leg lock, because I think we're going to see a really similar dynamic that you brought up in the pre-show as well, the Hinger versus Owen match that was mainly kind of a pushing match on the feet. I think that's also a possible dynamic here as well.
But in that situation, at least, like, Hinger was more apt to go to his butt in that situation, because I think he does go to his butt for a certain period of time. I don't see Chris doing that.
No.
I see Chris, if he falls, right, and he gets foot swept, Chris might even try to, like, turtle from, like, falling, not wanting to fall to his back. And in that situation, Owen just takes his back.
Yeah. This is a weird one to call. I think this does kind of probably lean on the slower side, but I think that foot sweep that Owen has, and then the leg locks that he has, I think those will be the deciding factor. And I think that Owen's going to have more gas late, even though he is going to be the smaller guy here.
Yeah.
Is kind of my thought. So I think I'm going Owen as well, but should be a great card. looking forward to it. Any sort of closing thoughts on it?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Well, not on this one. We can close out Polaris 23, but I forgot to tell you during the pre-show, and I just looked at my notes and realized it, that there's another thing this weekend. There's the SOGI Winter Wars this weekend in Long Island.
Yeah, that's happening as well. There's some good matches on
and
that.
That is a middleweight championship bracket that has Chris Wojcik in it, which we've seen him in some of the submission-only series matches. And Felipe Cesar Silva, who is a Unity black belt. That's really good. The main event, there's two main events. One features Max Hansen, and the other main event features our friend Keith Krikorian.
Yeah, you used to seminar with you, didn't you?
Yeah. Yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. So they're both in the main events. Max Hansen goes against Diogo Hannibal.
Yeah.
And Keith Krikorian goes against Andrew Solano. And then the actual main event is Pat Shangali versus Alex Nemeth.
And that should be, I think, for the heavyweight title for SOGI. I think Pat has that now, and Alex Nemeth is trying to take that. So, yeah. So that should be a fun event. That's on Flow as well now, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's on Flow now, so that should be fun.
I forgot that I wrote notes about that. And
you texted me before the pre-show and I just didn't write it down. So
well, that was yesterday, because yesterday night I was watching all this stuff because I didn't know what I would have time to do today. Yeah.
So should be a fun week. Anyway. Again, I'm amped. Should be a really, really fun weekend of grappling, and I'm looking forward. Again, I always love a good Polaris. It showcases so much great UK talent, and they've just continued to do that over the years. Their GP events are always just phenomenal. I love the posters. I would love to get a big ass Polaris poster for the house. That would be super cool.
Send it out to the internets and say that's what you want, and see if somebody can get you a Polaris poster.
That'd be cool. So yeah. I don't have much else. Do you have anything fun going on this weekend or this week for you other than being sick?
I don't plan to be sick all weekend. I plan to be sick for maybe another day. I am reffing the Hammer Challenge Series this weekend. It is the cool. Female duels in Jersey. So I do that Saturday.
That'll be fun.
I don't think the rest of my weekend is planned up yet.
Zach and I did commentary this weekend for Copa, Virginia. That was a lot of fun. Okay. Christian Banghart won again.
Yeah, the guy that took second place in that absolute bracket is a standard jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah.
And I watched him on like this money I don't know. It was a in-house but not in-house money bracket no-gi thing that I don't know who was invited to and who wasn't invited to, but somehow I got invited to it. I was at that, and that standard guy actually won.
Yeah, Brian, right?
He beat a bunch of. I mean,
he was very, very good. That again, the whole bracket, Copa Virginia always puts on a really fun, money bracket. And Zach and I, and you've done commentary for it. It was great this weekend. There's a video going around right now on Reddit of a guy that's probably like 400 something pounds in a white belt absolute, lifting a guy and choking him, off a foot or 2 feet off the ground just by his neck and choking him out. Not choking him out, but choking him, and the guy taps. That match happened while Zach and I were doing commentary, and we had to neither of us could continue to commentate. We just stopped and looked at it, and then tried to regain, and the guy taps me. We had to regain our composure to keep talking about the match again, and that video is now going around the internet, and I'm just laughing. I was like, oh yeah, that was it's from the other angle of where I was doing commentary, and it just completely screwed up me doing commentary for that. That's
not the really big guy that's from Baltimore, right? That's from what's it called, gym?
I'm not sure. He was a guy that looked kind of familiar, but he was definitely it was a textbook absolute where it's one guy has 200 plus pounds on the other guy, and it was just very funny to again, I love doing commentary, but it's fun for these events because sometimes there's still matches going on other mats while you're doing commentary, and usually we do a pretty good job of remaining composed and keeping focus on the action and talking about the match at hand. But it was just one of the moments where occasionally it will happen where you'll see something wild happen on another mat, and it's so wild you kind of like lose your focus for a second and need to regain it. And I always like to kind of call those moments out because I think they're funny, and it reminds me that like, oh yeah, I still really do enjoy this sport, and you know, getting a chance to be at these events and be in the environment and like talk about and talk for jiu-jitsu. So that was my fun weekend.
Yeah.
So
I went to a Keith Krikorian seminar. It was fun. Keith taught us all kinds of fun stuff from bottom half. It was a good time.
That's awesome.
I enjoyed myself. It was at Droog's.
Oh
which
yeah.
is like kind of north of Philly, sort of. I don't know what they consider that. I don't know. I consider it's near the jail because the freaking Pennsylvania death row is near. So I know where the jail is, and the jail is north of Philly, and it's somewhere that direction.
Sweet. So yeah, Keith.
That's my wonderful
Keith's always cool.
direction.
You've done a couple seminars with Keith, haven't you?
No, that's my first Keith seminar.
Oh really? I thought you'd done more. So
no, I've never. Because the first time I met him was West Coast Trials.
Oh really? That's so funny.
Fun. Yeah, when we talked to him after.
Yeah, we did the interview with him, and that's great. Yeah, again, huge fan of Keith. Love what you're able to go to the seminars. I'm curious to pick your brain and see what he taught, because he has a wealth of technique, and it's been cool to watch him kind of grow that over the years and do what he's done. So, You got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine. It's my co-host,
Miranda.
And we have the Grappling Rerun. Just stay on the mat, whatever it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.